So I did that video where I talked about games that I liked that other people weren't too fond of. And I figured, what better way to follow that up at some point than to do a video of games that I didn't like that other people enjoyed. Now, I'm not saying everybody enjoyed this. I'm sure quite a few of my audience members might agree with some of the things I talk about in this video. But I just wanted to go over some games that I didn't enjoy that got good sales, good reviews, that sort of thing. Whether or not it was found out afterwards that the games were piles of shit or what, I don't know. But I'm going to talk about some games that I didn't like very much that aren't particularly bad games, it's just I don't like them. So understand that when we're going into this, if you see a game that you're like, oh, I love that game, try not to get too butthurt, but I'm going to talk about some stuff. And the first game that I'm going to talk about is the only one I'm not going to be able to hold up in the video. I like being able to hold stuff up in videos, no doubt you guys know this, but I don't actually have this game, and I wasn't about to borrow it from Taylor just to hold it up in a video. Destiny. I hate Destiny. And it's gotten a lot of good press. It's gotten a lot of bad press as well. But when it comes down to it, I was super hyped for Destiny. And after playing one of the initial demos or one of the initial betas or whatever that one of my subscribers / buddies, Kevin, gave me, I lost almost all interest. And I'm glad I did. Because after the hype, after the letdown, after realizing the story just wasn't there, after realizing the world just wasn't there, after realizing how much DLC there'd be, and realizing the microtransactions, and realizing that their 10-year plan was full of shit, I'm kind of glad I skipped Destiny. You may like Destiny, you may not like Destiny, but it's an objective fact that it just certainly wasn't what it was advertised to be, and it was a big steaming pile of shit as far as I'm concerned. But let's go ahead and get into some of these games that I can actually hold up and see how many people I can trigger today. I don't really care if you're triggered. I paid $40 for this. I haven't even beat the first dungeon. I fucking hate The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword. And the biggest issue I have with this game is the fact that they keep wanting to throw weird gimmicks into this series. I understand that with Breath of the Wild, which I still think looks amazing, I still plan on getting a Switch. Nintendo fanboys, calm the fuck down. Even though Breath of the Wild, like the only gimmick that it really has in there is, I think, the fact that it's on the Switch and you can tilt and do these kinds of things. The problem with Skyward Sword was I couldn't do anything without dealing with the motion controls. And there just simply wasn't an option for a controller. If I had been able to play this game with a Pro Controller until the motion controls go fuck themselves, I would have really enjoyed playing this game. It's a beautiful game and I wanted to experience it, but at this point I just haven't done anything with it. And I paid $40 for this off of Amazon. It really sucks, but The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword is a big steaming pile of shit as far as I'm concerned. I realize I said that same thing about Destiny. I really hate when I repeat things over and over again in videos. It makes me seem like I'm unintelligent. Which a lot of my haters think I am. This next game, I like this franchise now. I've been a fan of this franchise for a while. But if I had to pick my least favorite game in the franchise, aside from 4 and 5, it would probably be this one. Like, out of the original trilogy, this is my least favorite game. And I know this is going to hurt some feelings, but you're going to have to deal with it. Halo 2. I have a lot of problems with Halo 2. Not the least of which is its legendary difficulty. I've played all the Halos on legendary, except this one. Do you know why? Because this one's just unfair. It's just fucking unfair. It's ridiculous. It's not fun. It's not challenging. It's unfair. But that's not the only problem I have with it. I have a lot of other issues too. This introduced the options for dual wielding, which was awesome, but it seems like the series has forgotten all of that after 3, which annoys the piss out of me. You introduced something I like and then it was taken away from me, so I'm going to blame you. But when it comes down to it, Halo 2 just isn't a complete game. That's my biggest issue with it. It ends on a very disappointing note, and a lot of people were pissed off about this. It's still a great game, don't get me wrong, but I just have to be honest, I don't like Halo 2 as much as Halo Combat Evolved. If I had to pick my favorite in the franchise, it's a toss-up between Halo Combat Evolved and Halo Reach. I think both of them are just amazing games with great gameplay, great characterization, great stories. The reveal of the Flood in Halo Combat Evolved was amazing, and of course you knew it was coming back in 2, but it just didn't feel as great as it did the first time around, and there just wasn't as much of a threat, in my opinion, what with learning about the grave mind. It's great to learn more, but giving them like a sort of intelligence that communicates with you just wasn't that frightening to me anymore. It was space zombies, and then it was fucking space zombies with a talking vagina mouth. Anywho, when it comes down to it, Halo 2 is my least favorite in the franchise. Not a bad game. Not a bad game. I just don't like it as much as the others. Now we're going to get to some points that probably bother people. I like this series now, and I own these games because I'm a collector. I don't have a whole lot of games I hate back here. Making this video is a pain in the ass because I had to be like, what games do I have on my shelf that I hate that were actually good? And I was like, oh, the Devil's Cartel. Nobody liked the Devil's Cartel. These games, though, they're not bad games, but I can't fucking get into them. If you go through my gamer score, you'll notice that I haven't really played these. I've played 3, I've played 4, and I love the shit out of 3 and 4. But these first 2 games, I'm just not a fan of, and I'm sorry. Saints Row 1 and 2. I'm putting them in the same spot because I dislike them both equally. Saints Row 1 is butt fucking ugly by today's standards. And Saints Row 2 looks really nice, but the problem is it still has the same cumbersome controls from 1. That's the big issue, I think, with these games, is their control. I can't get past the way they play, and I can't enjoy them. If they had better control scheme, I might be able to play them and enjoy them more. All the more reason, I think, for them to remaster these games on Xbox One and PS4. Or put all the games together. I mean, the only other one I didn't like was Gat Out of Hell, and that's because I couldn't create my own character and play as me. I was playing as Gat, and I don't like Gat. I'm sorry, Gat. I'm not a fan of Gat. Deal with it. But I loved Saints Row 3, and I loved Saints Row 4. They play great, they look great, they sound great, they're funny, they have interesting stories, interesting characters, interesting missions. I love the shit out of them. But I fucking hate these first 2 games. Sorry. Before I hold this one up, I want to say that my relationship with this series is love and hate. I say love and hate because when people tell you something's good, you want to know why they think it's good. And one of the best ways when it comes to gaming to know whether or not, to know why someone thinks something's good is to play it. Experiencing it for yourself is the best way to inform yourself. Yes. Of course, I know there's those people like, you have to play it or you can't have an opinion on it. Shut the fuck up. There is a difference between, I don't want to play that, or I don't like that, so I don't want to play it, and being like, why do you like this? I'm gonna experience it to see why you like this. And that's always been my goal with this series. If I had to be perfectly honest, my favorite game in this franchise is number 3. And you guys don't know what game I'm talking about yet. My favorite one is number 3. I think number 3 has the best gameplay. I think it has the best story, the best characters, the best sequences. Everything about 3, I think, is pitch fucking perfect. But the rest of the franchise feels like a wet hot mess to me. I'm going to hold up the game and I'm going to trigger everybody. The Metal Gear Solid franchise. I fucking hate it. Why do you have it, Brett? Because I'm a collector. I also have Twin Snakes back here. When it comes down to it, the problems I have with the Metal Gear Solid franchise is that it presents itself as some sort of stealth game, but it's not really good at stealth. When it comes down to it, stealth, there's a lot of parameters that can go wrong for a stealth game to fail. And I feel like Metal Gear Solid hits all of them. You don't always spend your time sneaking around. There are lengthy sections where it's like, here, shoot rocket launchers at Gundams. That's not fun. That's not stealthy for me. And yeah, there are sequences where things shit the bed, and in some stealth games you have to fight your way out. I've had that in Splinter Cell many times. But like with the Splinter Cell franchise, the Hitman franchise, the Thief franchise, it always revolves around being sneaky. There's moments where you can just ghost through areas. And I'm sure you can ghost through places on this, but it's just like, why would you make a game like Metal Gear Solid 4 where you're like, we want you to be sneaky now, and then you give me all these fucking guns, and you're like, don't shoot nobody now, you're going to get a trophy if you're sneaky. And it's just like, I can't get through this franchise without being pissed off at something. If it's not the long-ass boring cutscenes and the derivative story that puts me to sleep, it's the fucking gameplay. I like stealth games. I like being sneaky. I like ghosting. But I feel like I feel like Metal Gear Solid just doesn't have the tools or the gameplay to really pull that off properly. I can say that it's gotten better. Metal Gear Solid 3, again, is my favorite one. If I had to pick between the regular version and the subsistence version, it's the subsistence version every fucking time. I feel like Metal Gear Solid 4 had better with like being able to control the camera for once, being able to like rotate and look around and survey your surroundings. And I hear Metal Gear Solid 5 is pretty interesting, but again, that's an open world versus linear bullshit that I don't care to play yet. But I just don't like the Metal Gear Solid franchise. Sorry. Can't help it. I didn't like this first entry in this franchise either. but I can say that the second game more than redeemed it in my eyes. I absolutely loved playing the second game. It was fun, it was interesting, had a great story, great characters, everything about it was fantastic. To the point that when I played the third game in the series, I missed certain things that they had arbitrarily removed, such as the ability to take cover and shoot from behind it. It was a bit annoying, but I absolutely cannot stand this first game. I think that the story in it is actually pretty interesting, and the manipulation of time and space and the villain reveal and all that stuff is really interesting. But I just can't get past the fact that I fucking hate the main character and I hate the gameplay. And that is Infamous. A perfect example of a exclusive title not being that great. If I really wanted to go through exclusive titles that sucked, I'd talk about Heavy Rain, but I don't even have a copy of Heavy Rain because Heavy Rain was shit. But when it comes down to it, Infamous just wasn't very fun for me. I know a lot of people really liked it, but I'm more of a prototype guy. I found that when these two games came out, I was instantly more attracted to Alex Mercer's abilities than Cole McGrath's. And it just annoyed me how this character was. Again, Infamous 2 is infinitely better, even coming down to the voice actor change. I don't know if it's the same guy playing both these people, but the 1 and 2 sounds better and more likable than Mr. McGravely voice here. He tries way too hard to be Batman. I'm a dark, brooding character. It's fucking pretentious. And the other thing I didn't like, though, was the fact that the game just felt really clunky. There were a lot of issues with this. Like, if you play, like, say, for instance, the Assassin's Creed franchise, which I'm not even going to talk about on this video. I don't like those either, though. If you play the Assassin's Creed franchise, they got very fluid, very good movement when you're climbing up buildings. With this, you just had to, like, hump the side of the building and tap the X button until you jumped up it. It was very cumbersome, very unwieldy. Didn't like it at all. I'm just not a big fan of this first game. And when it comes down to it, it's not a bad game. I just don't fucking like it. I don't have to go over this one. I have a 15-part Let's Play, and I have my definitive thoughts on it. If you want to know why I don't like Resident Evil 7, you got plenty of watching to do. This one, however, this was sent to me by a subscriber, and I thought it looked really cool. But after having played it, I fucking hate this game. But I'm going to hold on to it because my buddy Adam and I already had issues with another game that he sent me that I hated, which I'm not going to talk about in this video. Fuck Monster Hunter. But when it comes down to it, I really do not like Shadow of Mordor. I know a lot of people like Shadow of Mordor. It was badass. It's got great combat. I disagree. I think the combat's fucking trash. This game emulates Batman so fucking hard in its control scheme. And don't get me wrong, I don't have a problem with games emulating that style of fighting. Hammering the square or the X button and tapping triangle or Y to counter, you know, hitting the B or circle to dodge. All of those things are great. I don't mind this arena-style combat system. The problem I had with Shadow of Mordor was I had to deal with about a billion fucking Uruks at any given time, and they never stopped coming, and I fucking hated that. The reason Batman's combat works is because you're in an arena. You have a set number of enemies that you have to deal with. In Shadow of Mordor, that number is ever increasing, especially in boss fights, and it was just tedious, pretentious, and frustrating at many times. I just want to fight the big guy. Can I fight the big guy? No, you're going to put Uruks up my ass? Alright, fine. It was very annoying. I liked a lot of other aspects about the game, the exploration, finding all the little collectibles. I love that shit in open world games. I love finding collectibles in open world games. But when it came down to the combat, that was the thing that killed the entire game for me. And when your game's 90% combat, that's a huge problem. Also, the final boss fight was fucking garbage. And I had one person comment is like, well, you know, there's nothing wrong with the quick time event because at that point he's hurt and you can't really fight that way when you're hurt. Are you really defending quick time events and bad game design in a fucking game you liked? I think the ending would have been infinitely better if I'd had badass fighting system and got to beat the shit out of the guy that cut my son and my wife's throats. But no, let's defend quick time events. I didn't enjoy this game. I'm going to hold on to it, and I still need to play the DLC in it. But I'm not a big fan. Shadow of Mordor fucking sucks. Alright, so these last games. I have 2 of them in my hands, but I really don't like the entire franchise. And I understand that this is going to probably piss people off, but I don't care. I don't think these games are bad. Like I said at the beginning of this video, these are just games I didn't like. They're not bad, they don't suck, it's just my personal opinion of what I think of them. These games are quintessential. They're fantastic. They're amazing games. But I don't fucking like them. I have them in my collection because I'm a weird motherfucker and I like collecting video games. And they were super cheap. but at the same time, I just don't like them. If you like them, that's great. Let me know why you like them down in the comments section, but I'm going to talk about why I'm not a big fan of Max Payne. The entire fucking franchise. I don't like Max Payne. The first game, in and of itself, is relatively unoffensive. One thing I didn't talk about with Infamous was, of course, its really neat graphic novel cutscenes. And Max Payne did something like that years before. And it looked really cool. The tale of Max trying to, uncover the seedy underbelly of the city, trying to find out what's going on with the drug. I think it was called Valkyr. Trying to find out who the politicians are that are spreading this. Trying to find out who the corrupt police officers are. All this really cool stuff that happens throughout the first game is interesting. I just really don't like playing it. I think that's because Max Payne feels like it's a very hands-off type of game. Not to say I'm one of these losers that needs auto-aim or any type of assistance or iron sights or anything, but it's just a real wonky game for me to get into. The shooting's fine and everything, but it's just I don't like the way it controls. And of course it introduced a revolutionary mechanic with the slow-mo. That was fantastic, but I feel like Max Payne is the progenitor of a real big issue with a lot of derivative slow-mo in gaming. And I remember slow-mo from the NES area, it's just not the same. The second game, honestly, I haven't played it. I have not played the second game, I'm afraid. I bought it just so I could have it on the shelf next to the first one. I haven't ever played the third Max Payne, and that's where probably my biggest issues lie with the Max Payne franchise. Max is just a douchebag. I understand that he has his problems and he has, his afflictions, but he's an alcoholic loser by this point. He gets dragged away from the city because he fucks with the wrong mob boss's son, and then gets pulled into an issue with cartels and hostages, and he's supposed to be the fall guy. What kind of dumbass bad guy's like, I'm going to hire a fall guy? Who do I hire? How about we hire that badass cop that killed like 1 million fucking gangsters in New York? That seems like a really good idea. I hear he can go into slow-mo and jump through windows with style. You're a fucking idiot for hiring Max Payne to be your fall guy. But overall, the problems I have with Max Payne throughout his franchise is probably the same issues I have with Kratos throughout his. They're just really unlikable protagonists. In the first game, he was endearing because he was getting revenge for the murder of his wife and child, and I can really resonate and understand that. But throughout 2 and 3, I don't care. Again, I haven't played 2, but I've read the lore. When it comes down to it, though, these are the games that I think are really good games. I just don't like them very much. Probably except for Destiny. Destiny is shit. And when it comes down to it, I'm sure there's a lot more games I didn't mention, like Battlefront or, even Battlefield 1, Call of Duty Infinite Warfare. I'm sure a lot of people are like, I hate Call of Duty Infinite Warfare. I fucking love all the cybernetic space shit. I can't wait to play Infinite Warfare. But when it comes down to it, what game did you not like that just got all kinds of hype and buzz around it? Was it Titanfall? Was it, fucking Overwatch, which I think is overrated? Let me know what games you hate that are actually really popular, really successful games. And if you enjoyed this video, drop me a thumbs up. If you hated this video and you want Max Payne to leap through my window right now and slow-mo shoot me in the fucking face, drop a dislike. Do take care, and thank you for watching.